Well, the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine told us a few days ago that the country has fulfilled all 7 steps that the European Commission set out as a precondition to start accession negotiations with the European Union. If you actually look at what the European Commission set out in its formal report on this, Nadia, which was on the 8th of November, it was a little bit more circumspect. The European Commission said that the Ukrainian state had made substantial progress on meeting the 7 steps, so it didn't actually say exactly whether it was 3 or 7, but firstly, the number of steps that Ukraine has fulfilled, that could have obviously shifted between the 8th of November and when I spoke to the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine. In any case, there won't be another formal assessment by the European Commission until March. So it's perhaps a bit of a grey area, but I guess you could say the bottom line is that the European Commission did recommend at the beginning of November the start of accession negotiations for Ukraine and for Moldova. So that is what Viktor Orban is going against in pushing back on, let's say, at the start of this very important summit here in Brussels.
And Armin, it's important to reiterate that whatever Ukrainian diplomats are saying, actually whatever most members of the European Union are saying on these key issues of funding and EU membership, Orban has the power of a veto.
Viktor Orban really has the keys to 2 possible deals here in Brussels. One is the EU budget, so at stake is something called the multi-financial framework, which is the long-term EU budget that actually contains 50 billion euros in aid to Ukraine, budget aid to Ukraine. So if there were to be a deal on the budget, if Viktor Orban could be brought on board with that in some way, that would basically free up that 50 billion euros in support to Ukraine. And the other big question that Orban has this power to block is giving a strong political signal to Ukraine on enlargement. And we heard from President Zelensky, who addressed the summit a little bit earlier today. By the way, there was a lot of speculation swirling around in Brussels earlier today that Zelensky would actually make an in-person appearance, given how critical Ukraine sees this European aid right now, and that he would be coming here because he was only a couple of hours away in Norway, but in the end he addressed the summit by video conference. We just asked some EU officials here, was he not invited in person in order to not put Viktor Orban in a corner, in order not to basically push Viktor Orban away from, even further away from the other EU colleagues, and we didn't really get a completely straight answer on that. So maybe that was the reason, maybe it wasn't. In the end anyway, Zelensky addressed EU summit leaders, as he often has done, by video conference, and I think it was pretty obvious from his comments that he does see this situation as extremely urgent. And you have to, of course, remember the backdrop, Nadia, as well, that there's been a bit of a political shift in the United States to a big question as to how long the US is going to be supporting Ukraine financially. That means that anything that is decided here in what could be a very long summit in Brussels, anything that is decided or not decided here is going to be watched just as closely in Washington as it will be in Moscow.